Hello, folks. Welcome along once again to the Left Wing Back Show live. We have two great shows coming up for you again tonight. We have the Hurling Show first, coming up in a few moments' time, and then the football show will be kicking off at about 9:40 approximately. We have a clatter of stuff to go through. Both shows, incidentally, are in association once again with Solar Science, which reminds me, I was supposed to fly out to Nigel to pick up a lovely backdrop for tonight's show. We still have a blank wall behind us, so sorry, Nigel, I'll be out to you there tomorrow or the day after to pick up those, and we'll have them for next Monday. But thanks again to Solar Signs. Number one for your signage, garment printing and embroidery, solarsigns.ie, the website, and you can get them on Facebook and on Instagram as well. So yeah, what a weekend of action. We've plenty to go through on our hurling show. We'll be talking about Carlo's very impressive win, it must be said, over Westmeath in the Allianz National Hurling League. We'll also hear from Katie Gary Murphy and Catherine Kavanagh, part of the Ashbourne Cup winning DCU side yesterday. And we are going to be chatting to Joe Nolan and Stephen Miller in a few minutes' time. At 9:40 on the football show, we'll hear from Carlo Senior Football Manager Niall Carew. We'll also be chatting to Gavin Whelan of he's WLR fame, but he's also the Waterford Under-20 football manager. So we'll be touching base to see what's going on ahead of Carlo's clash with Waterford in the Allianz National Football League next Saturday evening. And we'll also be chatting to Barkil Martin, who won a very well-deserved Club Coach of the Year award over the past few days. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us, of course. Just drop us a comment underneath the post. We're live on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube. So don't be afraid to get in touch. Joe Nolan, how are we doing?
Great, Kevin, and you?
Sure, flying it. Love is in the air. Valentine's Day. Did you get her the roses?
Yeah, because I did, yeah. A box of sweets, all right, maybe, yeah. Apparently, Stevie had to break the bad news this evening. He was unavailable. Apparently, Niamh is getting wined and dined tonight, is it?
Well, I heard it was, obviously we know his profound love for the quarry, but he's very much in love with Twitter as well. So I think there's a three-way love affair maybe going on here. Maybe a four-way love affair, to quote a Declan Ernie song.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately he couldn't make it. Maybe he's just gone all romantic altogether. He probably had to bring her out for a
could be, yeah, it could
dinner.
be. Yeah.
It's
in his nature, you know yourself.
And it's probably a wise move, because we could end up in the doghouse, of course, for going live on Valentine's Day. So anyway, however, we're here.
Yeah.
We also have Stephen Miller of Laois Today. How are you doing, Stephen?
Not too bad. Good evening from Port Laois, as I say in Eurovision.
Great to have you in. Owner, of course, of Laois Today, and it's been a roaring success. 5 years on the go now, I think, maybe 6?
Yeah, 5 years last week. We had our 5th birthday, so we didn't do anything sort of special to celebrate the 5th birthday, even though we had cake and all that for our 2nd and 3rd and 4th birthday. But we're trying to keep the show on the road, and these sort of milestones they're important, but it's more important to keep things on the straight and narrow.
Yeah, and look, I know from doing the Left Wing Back podcast and indeed the Irish Rally podcast that these things can take over a little bit, right? So time management is important, but things are happening at all sorts of hours of the day, and sometimes it's hard to get away from it, isn't it? In fairness.
Look, it never stops. Like, when I set it up 5 years ago, I could never, I was trying, you'd look back and you'd laugh at some of the things you thought would play out. And it just never, ever stops. We've had, different number of people on our team. It's really essentially down to a 2-man team, myself and my colleague Alan Hartnett at the moment. But COVID is essentially over now, and things are full steam ahead. Everything is back to normal. So we're stretched fairly thin, but look, we're managing to keep the good side out. So we can't look. It's better to have places to go than to be stuck at home all the time, I suppose.
That's it. And I suppose in one sense the reliance on media and digital media and everything was never greater than it was during COVID and stuff. So while a lot of people, unfortunately and sadly, were probably quiet, you guys were flat to the board, because you were literally keeping people informed of what was going on when they couldn't even go outside the door.
We were an essential service, sure. We were we were allowed to go where we wanted,
Yeah.
But no, thankfully very lucky. COVID has been very hard for a lot of people, but in our business, okay, it's been hard and we've lost revenue and we've had lose staff and stuff like that. But for us, we were able to continue to go working, which was the greatest privilege of all. And I was still able to go into my office, still able to, there was no matches at certain times. But when there were, we were the ones that were allowed to go to them. So give out about a certain amount of things, but over the last 2 years, we were probably less affected than a lot of other people. So we've, in the overall scheme of things, we've little to be complaining about.
Yeah, well, look,
just
go on, yeah.
sorry, Kev. No, just to chime in on that, I'm a big follower of the lads. I even wrote them a little email there one time. Just to compliment your, I think it was to Alan, just the reporting. We'd have a lot of lads, ex-students of mine, to be involved with clubs, and it's great to see, the Laois reports there, fairly rapidly after the match, and just to keep an eye out for the lads that we would have had in the school and all. And it's brilliant, just incredible, brilliant service.
Thanks, Joe. I remember getting that email. We try and keep. We would like, would be an interest in Carlow stuff, and like the Carlow GA, we'd have a huge interest in. I know I'm sort of barred from Dr. Cullen Park, but if you can get that lifted, lads, you might put in a good word for me.
Yeah, I think you had a bit of difficulty there, Wally. The two press boxes isn't ideal, I suppose, for a start, But
no. Anyway, look, we're not actually barred. The funny thing is, the Carlow audience would enjoy this. One of the stewards gave us a bit of grief about 10 minutes before a match and tried to move us. And like I said, look, I was here about an hour ago. You could have moved us then. I'm not moving now. And I was quite indignant. But he got quite taken. He sent for the guards, and the guard that arrived happened to be from Cretty. So the chances of us being getting in any trouble was fairly minimal. So we escaped that one. But that was just before COVID, and I haven't been back since. But we're not actually barred, but we make a bit of a joke about it. But
it could be a relationship building exercise then for the next one.
Yeah. Well, you'll put in a good word for us.
Yeah, well, listen, the county chairman is half a Laois man now anyway, whether he'll admit it or not. So that might be a good thing. Look, lads, we're going to delve into, obviously later on in the programme, we'll be chatting about Carlow versus Westmeath in the Alliance Hurling League, and we're going to turn our attention to Camogie. But I suppose, as I was saying to Stephen off air, Joe, like last year when we were doing all these club games, it was very hard to kind of focus on other things. But given the fact that there is maybe only a couple of games to cover every weekend, it does allow us the opportunity to chat about different things that's going on in the GA, which obviously started last week with Pamela Hayden, and we got great insight into refereeing and stuff. But this week obviously kind of brings about a different topic. So last Thursday, John Fogarty wrote an article in the Irish Examiner. So it was on the base, I suppose, about Castleknock. And I'll read out the full article, actually. It's the handiest thing to do because it's not a long one. So it says, Castleknock GAA Club have decided that all of their adult club teams will be managed on a volunteer basis from next year. In a refreshingly frank and open move, the club's executive earlier this week made the call that will come into force across the board for the 2021 season. And then there's a quote. The executive at a meeting on the 19th of October 2020 decided that all adult club teams will be managed on a volunteer basis. And that's a statement on the Castleknock website from that time. They add that management positions are also open to non-members who are willing to contribute. The executive will appoint all management teams based on the recommendations of two subcommittees put together to oversee the selection process. A subgroup has been established for both the adult female and male sections of the clubs and will be chaired by the adult games chairman in each part and will include the club chairman and two other members. Input from players is the first part of the phase, as well as consultation with outgoing management teams and other members who want to be involved in the 2021 teams. The statement continues, members who are aware of non-members who would add value to the management of teams and are willing to engage with the club should feed those names and contacts into the process. And then there's another quote from the website again. In the engagement phase, members can submit their views by email or by requesting a meeting through Zoom. These views can be either individually based or by team and will be treated as confidential. And the club executive are allowing 2.5 weeks to complete the first phase, after which the subcommittees will meet with prospective management teams to discuss their plans. The subcommittees are also empowered to speak to other possible management teams should they see fit to do so before a recommendation is made to the club executive. Last paragraph then, it's obviously home of the Dublin football star Kieran Kilkenny, which we all know, great hurler as well. And obviously that club is regarded as one of the most progressive dual clubs in the capital, having only been established in 1998, and now it has over 1,500 members. And the senior footballers did reach the county final 4 years ago. I remember that one actually. Won Leinster Junior only in 2012, and both footballers and hurlers claimed county junior and intermediate county titles in the past decade, while the club has also won 3 national failed titles. That's an article on the Irish Examiner from John Fogarty, a fine writer, if I do say so myself. So it brings about this discussion then, and the use of, I suppose, resources and finances within clubs. And is it a good thing to always maybe tying in with, look, part of that expense is obviously coaches, if they come in from a different club, right? And it's called expenses. It's payment, really, yeah? It's just worded differently. So, Stephen, I suppose I will come to you on this first, right? So, correct me if I'm wrong, you might have actually spoken about this briefly on the Leash Today Talking Sport podcast. But in general, where do you kind of stand on this? Are we, resourceful enough, I suppose, in GA clubs, or are we kind of a little bit too keen on maybe, I don't know, looking for something outside and always thinking that's the right thing to do? And obviously, there's a lot more than management bring in this whole argument. So, what do you think?
Yeah, look, it's like a lot of things. It doesn't operate in straight lines. There's a lot of variables feeding into it. Now, like at its core, I'm uncomfortable with payments and huge payments to managers, be they outside or be where they're from. Like, we are an amateur association, like whether amateur or we're not. It's easier said than done. Like Kilcoo won the All-Ireland club final at the weekend, and they were steered home by Mickey Moore from it wasn't even from their county. He's from Derry. He came over, like they would not have won their Ulster titles or All-Ireland title without Mickey Moore. In Laois, like Portarlington have won the last 2 championships in a row. Brilliant group of players, talented, maybe a little bit volatile up until a couple of years ago. And the man they brought in was from Gracefield, a neighbouring club, but across the border in Offaly, Martin Murphy. The right hand of the tiller, and he guided them home. Would other managers have won it? Maybe. Like, we don't know, but like he definitely was the one that steered the ship home and has them at back-to-back League Senior Football champions. So there's no real right and wrong way, but I absolutely commend Castleknock GA Club for taking this stance, because they've had 6 managers in the past 6 years. I take it they were probably after paying all of them. It's a serious black market out there, like I remember doing the maths on it in Laois, let's say, and trying to figure out annually what the club management scene is worth, like how much actual cash is moving under the tables from various managers to, and I'm not like the physios and even maybe strength and conditioning guys, they can declare a lot of it, but I'm not so sure how much is actually, like, it's in the line of work for physios and gym owners that might be with a team or whatever. So I am a bit uncomfortable, especially, I served as my own club treasurer for a couple of years as well, and you see the money going out, and like, how sustainable is it? Like, and I do know of a club manager in Laois who got the guts of 20,000 one particular year, achieved very little of note. A year or 2 before it, they had their own guys in charge and got to a county final. Sure, those guys got very little for it, so you have to wonder, where is the value in it? So I absolutely commend Castleknock for the move to take it. I'd say it'll be a bit painful in the short term, because there'll be no outside manager will go near them for a start, or very few, or unless you get an ambitious young guy that says, hold on a second, right, I'm not going to get anything for this, but Castleknock are a decent setup. If I got them to a senior semi-final or a senior county final, it's a feather in my cap, and then maybe someone else. But you hear the money that's supposedly circulating in the Dublin clubs, it's absolutely astonishing. And for what, like? It is an amateur association. Even if they do win a Dublin championship or a Leinster and All-Ireland, and it costs them crazy money, but I don't know. I don't see the return on it. And there are other ways, like you give me a choice to spend 20,000 on a manager for a year, or 20,000 maybe developing a second pitch at the side of your facility or something that will give long-standing benefit. Like, I know in Laois, I'm not 100% sure if Carlo is part of this project from the Leinster Council, where you can get a full-time coach in your club and it costs 20,000 for the year, or you can split it with a neighbouring club and there'll be 2 clubs involved for 10,000, or 3 clubs for 6,500 each, or whatever. Tell me that is a far better use of money that is hard earned or hard raised in clubs. So I commend Castleknock for it. I think they'll have a lot of pain to endure in the short term. But like, the GA is a copycat world. If Castleknock were to go well and everyone knows their stance on it now, there'll be clubs all over the country following that stance. And it's easier said than done. And I know Joe will have views on this as well. If you're from a small club, you may not actually have the people. You may not have anyone suitable to taking over. But in the likes of Castleknock, in the Dublin clubs, in the town clubs, if they don't have somebody fit to take over, then it raises serious issues about what they're doing down the ranks with their underage teams and their under 16 and minors and so on. So, and if that's the case, the far bigger problems than what can be solved in 1 year paying an outside manager.
Mm-hmm. Joe?
Jeez, Steve, you hit every nail on the head. I don't think I have a whole pile to add. I think you really summed it up brilliantly there. I suppose my big worry, it wasn't too with outside. I suppose it's outside managers and connections and costs, I suppose, is what I'm looking at as well. And you talked on a lot of things there in terms of, in terms, I suppose, from a monetary point of view, is sustainable even at club level. I mean, we've seen that at inter-county level there 2 years ago. We're up on 30 million now in terms of at inter-county level in terms of our spend. And you know yourself, and you mentioned there from being a club treasurer, and I was a club secretary and been around clubs as well for a while and committees and so on, that the costs involved. And, I don't know in some clubs is sustainable, especially a lot of rural clubs. I was looking, I think in some of the Dublin clubs, why it is such a big, I suppose why it's such a big carrot to dangle is because of the money that they're bringing in, in terms of their membership alone. The average membership in Dublin for an adult player is well over €200. You know what I mean? For a playing member, juveniles aren't far off it as well. So there's a lot of money spiraling around there, and then as a result, like you said, the money that's available to spend on management teams is massive. Yeah, I suppose I do have. I don't know whether it's sustainable. I mean, we talk about equity in terms of spending in the GA as well, and if we look at our clubs, and I mean, like you said yourself from your own experience as a treasurer, in terms of where's the balance, like in terms of our membership and where the spend is in our clubs. I mean, hand on heart, definitely our senior or our adult teams are by far and away the most costly teams to run, and you can imagine yourself, without the other members paying in, it's one side like sometimes in some clubs they're like a pyramid scheme where the underage is kind of supporting the senior setup in terms of bringing money in. I know clubs will come back and say, well, geez, our senior team does X and does Y, and we have a special sponsor for X and Y. But in general, in a lot of clubs, the juvenile is propping up the senior in terms of the costs. And I suppose I would have a worry about that. We're on about balance and fairness and costing, and and trying to be equal to all our members. And it just it would sometimes make me a little bit uncomfortable in terms of our spend. I suppose from another area as well there about the idea of developing, I think you have to develop coaches from within, you know what I mean? I think we have to as clubs. And I think sometimes our fascination with going outside, as a fix, is, right. In some cases it works, a lot of cases it doesn't. I suppose look, there's lots of very, very good coaches and people out there who do have the longer term development of the club, in their minds. But then there's a lot that don't. I mean, I was reading an article there about Conal Keeney, one of the best dual stars Dublin ever produced. And he wrote about, that the outside manager comes into his club and, he's on X per night or whatever he's on a night, and he gets him to train 6 nights a week. And Keeney turns around and he says to him, I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever my job is. And he kind of questions Keeney's commitment to his club and to the cause, and if, it kind of stuff like that would make me uncomfortable. Now, I know for every story like that, there's, like I said, there's hundreds of very good people who are working with clubs that aren't their own. But I just don't, I think as a model, it's not sustainable in terms of, we need to be able to develop that expertise from within. And I know you mentioned there about the likes of, say, Port Harrington bringing in an excellent manager or whatever at senior level. But I would always say, like, those players had to be developed from within. Do you know what I mean? In terms of while the senior manager has a couple of years to work and develop those players, there's been 16 or 18 years of development, skill level, whatever has gone into those players already. So there is obviously some expertise in that in your own club. And it's the idea of maybe, I suppose I would see in terms of developing that within your own club, developing that expertise within your own club. But I suppose, like, you made a couple of very good points. I mean, I just don't think it's sustainable at club level even anymore. I think that, I think our focus sometimes is wrong. I loved your point there in terms of the GDA. Like, we're on about young people and losing young people to our game. You losing youth and losing youth and losing youth. And we're wondering why, you know what I mean? But kind of when it comes to looking after the under 16 team, well, it's Jesus, right? Who can we get? Scratch around, see who we can get, bring in someone, right? There's lots of good people, obviously, as well, but it's a bigger task. Whereas, even going off and we hunting for the senior manager or whatever else, there's a lot more money involved. There's more, whatever you want to call it, involved in terms of what we put into them. And we're wondering why we're losing, our youth maybe further back. And I loved your idea there in terms of, and you really laid it out in the line in terms of our GDAs, in terms of the club's ability. We talk about the Dublin club's ability to, have their own GDAs, and it's great. They're absolutely right. They're bringing in good revenue, fine, but they're spending it in terms of why they're keeping, why they're keeping that catchment area going and how they're promoting it. Is it better money spent in terms of, two clubs going together, even two rural clubs going together, in terms of putting their money together for a couple of years? Possibly. We've fallen numbers in a lot of rural clubs, so we need every player that we can get, and I need to keep them involved to keep our teams vibrant. So, is it regressive to do that as a club? Would it be the right thing to do, to take a step back like Castleknock have from maybe a financial point of view, and look at where our spend is, and maybe put it into a GDA, or into, step it back a little bit? I possibly would think so, yeah, if it was my thinking.
I'd say some of the and there are some good journeymen. I know journeyman is a term that is bandied about. Like Mickey Moore has been with loads of teams and has brought success everywhere. The man that was from Clara and Offaly, that was over Pádraig Pearce's from Roscommon, Pat Flanagan, like he's brought success to numerous clubs, counties. Luke Dempsey is another guy. I think he gets a bit of a bad rap sometimes. He's had success nearly everywhere he's gone, or he's improved teams at all levels, clubs, schools, the whole lot. Like, I had a quick one. Like, I heard of the journeyman that gets a real bad name. He was over. He was suggesting to a guy, like, he's always on the circuit, different team in different counties every year, and he was suggesting to a guy, you should get in the circuit. There's great money to be got, like, And so you go off and get a county like Leitrim or Longford. It could be bet early, and you could have a good club team on the go as well. You could have two teams on the go, like, And that attitude is out there with and your man was absolutely shameless in saying it, and the guy who was saying it was like aghast at his attitude, like. But there are, but I think small clubs, and I'm from a small club myself, like, you can be caught, if you're amalgamated at underage level, all of a sudden you're only putting one person forward for the under 12s and one person forward for the under 14s, where the bigger clubs might have three people from their own club involved with each team, and their base of coaches from within their own club is going to be bigger straight away. So you have to get one senior manager out of every 10 selectors or whatever that is put forward. Like, it's much smaller where it's in the smaller clubs, and the smaller clubs can be their own, and not just smaller clubs, but all clubs can be their own worst enemies at times. They go out to get an outside manager. He comes in, they can be a bit wide-eyed and says, a lot of outside managers that don't really know the lie of the land that well. They spend the first year getting to figure things out. The year is over, and then they've been deemed that it was no good, it was a waste of money, and to just move on to the next one, and the whole cycle repeats itself over and over again. And if there's anything that is incredibly demoralizing for clubs, is paying a manager that is no good. Like, you're after handing over serious money over the course of the year, and so, geez, like, it's soul destroying. If you're going to pay, you're nearly as well past the point of no return. You want to be getting the Mickey Moorans of this world rather than some guy, or else go on the bottom and take a risk on a sort of an up and coming guy. But if you're paying something out and you're not getting value, you're sure one of our own would absolutely have done as well, or if not better than that, and you're after wasting your thousands. So look, it's
at the end of the day, Stephen. At the end of the day, only one person can win the title. Every other has it, Isn't that it? Like you mentioned there about what's worth. I mean, is everyone else to do what do you call it? I won't say a failure or whatever else. Like, I mean, you have to look at things in terms of development. Like, I always think, and I can't think of the quote there now, but it was to do with Joe McDonough, the former president who passed away, and he was on about. I put it up a couple of times on Twitter. It was just about developing the person. You know what I mean? That we're more the organization is more than than what happens on the pitch. And the success of the club. It's about developing people.
And we don't ever recognize the progress. You only recognize the success, and often success can come. Like, a team could win a championship and not be at the peak of their powers, and there could be a team that gets to a semi-final absolutely overachieving. But they're not. That manager isn't. You only got them to a semi-final, he won nothing or whatever. Like, it again, it doesn't work in straight lines, unfortunately.
There's 2 points I'd like to make on it, right, and then we'll move on to the next topic or whatever. But the first thing is, all these lads that are going to other clubs are from home clubs themselves, right? So you think to yourself, why aren't they staying in their own club, right? So they're good enough to go to every other club and do this and do that. So why are they doing that, right? First of all, I think it's a bit of a rhetoric, but we're hearing of wild things where there's vacancies in clubs and lads are going up maybe to Dublin or somewhere up the country and getting a fog of money while their own club are looking for a manager, and then they go down and get someone from Tipperary or get someone from Limerick or something, right? So that's one thing. And then I think the second thing is, what is the alternative then? So are we looking at a situation where, okay, yeah, professional has been named or has been mooted, I suppose, the equal professional, or do you put a cap on the expenses you can pay someone? Now, when I say expenses, I mean expenses quotation marks, right? Because we know it's payment. Are there reasonable alternatives, or how does that change, or should that change?
Yeah, well, it's very hard. I suppose very hard from. I mean, it's very hard in terms of the expenses thing or whatever you want to put on it. Like it's like what was that quote that was it or Peter Quinn about about the payments under the table? He says I can't even find the table. You know what I mean? Where there's the will, there's a way. Like unfortunately in the GA, like in terms of all that, so that's hard regulate. Sure, look, we call a spade in terms of that. Like um, I think that's a big grey area, isn't it? Like
Well, it's 40 or 50 years happening where managers are getting paid, right? It's not like it's happening in the last 10 years. It's probably become more prominent in the last 10, 15 years, and fees are probably gone more prominent as well, like much more prominent. And we're hearing mad stuff. Like, Stephen, you've mentioned figures already, yeah? But, like, I don't want to be like the owl that sits in the committee and says, sure, that'll never change, right? Because I always think that if there's reason for it, and if there's a positive mindset and a willingness and a kind of maybe a persuasive thing to get people to change slightly, then things can change, right? I always believe that. But you do have stumbling blocks. This is a difficult one, and I would still have the question, could you see a situation where there is a change apart from the inevitable, which is going to happen, I think, and it's going to go semi-pro or something?
Well, like, I don't club level in that. I think it's like, as Joe said, like it's the horse is well and truly bolted in terms of payments and that. Like, I think it does come down to, and things do go through in phases. I can guarantee you, if Castleknock were to win a championship and everyone knows what their attitude to paying managers is, that will catch on. It absolutely will catch on, because there's a huge copycat culture in the GA. Like, you can't. Like, it's up to the clubs themselves. Like, I'm not against you can't be against, people wanting to be involved with teams. And there is a limited, if you're from a club and you want to get coaching a team, or you want to get involved, there may be no opportunities within your own club. So you have to start at the bottom of the ladder and maybe take a junior team somewhere, or, start somewhere that isn't. If the only opportunity you have is to manage your own club, sure, that'll rule out a load of people. It's too straitjacketed. So you can't be doing that, and you can't be denying people with ambition opportunities, because that would be worse. But that's where I think the only approach is the Castleknock approach. Like, I think in Laois, like, over the last good few years, the costs of preparing county teams was increasing by about 50,000 a year. It was up over 800,000 for all the county teams. That'd be your three county football teams, minor, under 21 and senior, and in hurling and football. And, like, it was going up 50,000 a year. And yet we're probably further than ever from competing or contesting for Leinster championships. So, like, again, what will happen will be like, the famous film and book Moneyball, where, like, some club comes in and does it on the cheap. That'll catch on in some county. Like, some county will win in All Ireland in hurling or football, and the narrative will be, we did it in-house, and we had, such a guy didn't take anything, and we had selectors involved, and, or we boxed clever with physios, and we had physio interns, and it'll become fashionable to be thrifty at some point. And the one that is the first in that regard, they could well be onto something. Like, nobody has defined, and maybe it's easier said than done, what value, especially at county level, all the additional layers of expense bring. The easiest thing in the world is for an inter-county manager to say, we can't do without it. And they're going to the county board in various counties are the worst in the world for not giving them these things. But it's very hard to quantify it. And I reckon there will come a time when a county manager will become a champion of being able to do things on the cheap. And every county board in the country and every club officer in the country will point to these fellas, and it will happen.
I think one thing, sorry, Stephen, to cut across you there, was there was a tweet up about it from another podcast. You might know who it would be, connected to your own part of the woods, but he was
name it if you want.
Well, sure, Colin Parkinson, like, he was aghast that this was nearly a joke, like that this was what Castleknock were going to do, if you know what I mean. And I don't know. That kind of didn't sit easy with me, I suppose, in terms of. I know it was maybe only flipping the quote, but there was a few, yokes underneath it from others, and you'd be just kind of wondering, like, Jesus, like, like it's not that big a thing they're trying to do. They're trying to maybe develop from within or whatever else, and like you said, you have to kind of change somewhere. I mean, it's just not sustainable. And once the unfortunate thing is like, and again, this is a broader sense. It's not maybe to do with payments and managers, but it's maybe money in the GA. Like the reality is, like, you're a bigger county, you have more money, and that's the reality. And you're a bigger club, you have more money. And if you're looking at, say, I was reading about Kevin McStay, who was managing the Roscommon football team, and he was on about being to the pin of his collar to keep the county budget for a week at 15 grand. That was back, and he had to bring this, and he said he'd be at the pin of his collar to keep it, to run the senior football team in Roscommon for 15 grand a week. Like, that's the reality where intercounty, I know we're kind of jumping on a little bit, but in terms of spending, where spending is going in the GA, I think it went up 11 or 12% there in 2019, the year before, just shy of 30 million. Like, so it's not sustainable. And we see where club now is mimicking. We always talk about the training that club players now are doing. It's akin to maybe 7, 8, 10 years ago at intercounty level. But so now is the spends, if you get me, coming along with that. The costs involved with it as well is starting to increase as well. And I just be worried in terms of, it's not sustainable. And if you do let it continue, the gaps do get wider. You know what I mean? The gaps are going to get wider, and that's going to be the reality. And I suppose we have to, every smaller county, and then once they include yourselves in that least as well, but we have to accept that. You know what I mean? And
but like it's the equivalent of an arms race that you really don't have an opportunity of winning. Like, you have to keep up with the Dublins, the Limericks, the Tipperaries, the Kerrys of this world that are huge counties, huge financial backing, and you're like, well, Kerry are spending $1 million a year on their county teams. We should be spending $1 million a year. Well, even if we do spend $1 million a year on our county teams, it's not going to close the gap, like, So, it's a really, really tricky one. And like, I would never ever, I have huge respect. Like, I would say managing a lot of teams costs people money, and I would never begrudge anyone who gets their phone expenses or are looked after fairly well, and a lot of it is just respect goes a long way. But like, and I'm not Castle not saying they're not going to give expenses or anything, and more power to them if they are. But like, I've never begrudged a lad a phone, to make all the phone calls that have to be made.
Or like you said as well, Stevie, like those with expertise, say, like you mentioned, strength and condition, people who are doing long-term work. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say that, right?
So, in terms of
sorry to jump across, Joe, but that's very different, because someone has gone and trained and is professional in that.
That's what I said, Kevin. That's what I'm saying. That they deserve. That's their part of their job. That's their work.
Yeah, and the S&C.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They're working with teams. Yeah.
The only thing I'd say on that is, like, have you ever heard of an S&C guy that isn't highly rated? Every S&C guy is said to be highly rated. Because I don't know, like, I think it's sort of a moniker that goes with them. And the other thing, like, I'd say there are chartered physios out there who have spent a couple of years in university learning the profession or whatever, and they're looking at some of the physios that are on the club circuit that are getting financially immersed. I know there's physical therapists and there's different things that you can classify things, but the GA, the financial maneuverings is it's a black industry of the highest degree.
So look, lads, I suppose we'll have to leave it there. We're after debating it fairly well. I didn't hear a concrete alternative as such. I don't know, is there one out there? If anyone does have one, maybe send it in to us, comment underneath. Our email address is leftwingbackpodcast@gmail.com. We'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on it, and I suppose an alternative, really, because we've yet to kind of hear one, and just see what the story is. Steve Miller, it's been a privilege having you on. We'll chat to you again soon, and no doubt we'll see you with a ball hopping over on Moore Park during the summer, I suppose, and maybe late into the autumn as well.
No problem. Thanks for having us, lads.
Thanks a million. So we say goodbye to Steve Miller. Okay, on the hurling show now, we're going to turn our attention to yesterday's Allianz National Hurling League encounter between Carlow and Westmeath. So, Joe, you're in at this. was on commentary duty myself with James Hickey for local radio station, and pleasantly surprised, I think is the way I'm going to put it. Not so much in that Carlow won, right? I think that was a fairly reasonable chance, but the manner of victory and maybe the margin of victory as well. So 120 to 114 is how it finished up, but really a goal in injury time took the bad luck off it a little bit for Westmeath. So I think myself and James beforehand were saying, particularly in the middle third, we'd very inexperienced chaps in Conor Keoghan and Fiach Fitzpatrick coming up against Cormac Boyle, who we would have saw at intercounty minor level actually going back all them years. And he was joined by Angus Clark, might have went back centre back, but he was in around that kind of middle third or whatever, right? So we said, right, that's a lot of experience come up against a lot of youth. But that battle was won by Conor and Fiach, in my opinion, anyway. And I just think it was the closest thing to a complete team performance that I've seen from Carlow in a long, long time. And add in the fact that there's no Marty Kavanagh and John Nolan, I think it speaks volumes, really.
Yeah, agree, Kevin. First off, I suppose going in, you'd be kind of saying, right, this is going to be touch and go, because you couldn't be really, you couldn't be judging off the Keogh Cup in terms of, as a result, it was kind of, it was a dead game, there was no biting it, and both teams were kind of putting in and putting out, lads, kind of shadow boxing ahead of this game. So I suppose we kind of got to see the two real teams going at it on Sunday, and there was no doubt about the result. I thought from early doors. I really thought. I suppose we were lucky. We played with the breeze in the first half and established a good lead at just coming into half time. And I suppose we outscored them in the second half as well, which is a point of note as well. Barring the goal, I think, you know what I mean. At the end, it kind of put a good look at the end of it. But yeah, I suppose we kind of chatted there beforehand about the positives, the big positives from the game, and you mentioned there the youth around the middle. Conor Keogh and Fiach Fitzpatrick were just outstanding. I suppose I was thinking back there. I suppose one of our last midfield, kind of steady duos that we had for a good while were Shawnee Whelan and Jack Kavanagh. You know what I mean? Two lads who would go all day and work all day and hit anything that was going. And I think Fiach and Conor, like for two young lads, they just dominated the area. I think they got 3 points between them as well from play. Just completely masters of the area. Brilliant, kept going to the end. They're tracking, their work rate, they're hooking, they're blocking in around there. They made it absolutely a war zone there for Westmeath. And of course, not forgetting John Dial as well. Then John, another young man at wing forward who was very impressive, good hand. You know what I mean? Instrumental in a lot of our good play. Jack McCullough at wing back. So there's a lot of youth there. Dean Tobin as well. And obviously, as we said before. So there's a lot of youth there, and a lot of big changes, and lots of lads, and they really stood up to it. Really stood up to it. And I think that was one thing that probably impressed me, was the level of our physicality. I think we dominated Westmeath. I didn't think we gave them a foothold in the game. We absolutely, everything was put under so much pressure. I mean, I'd like to look back at the stats of the Westmeath in terms of their possession around the middle and their puck outs, especially. The pressure we put on any of their, Westmeath were kind of one dimensional. I suppose in one way they kept, wanting to work the ball. I know a lot of teams do it, but they were trying to work everything so short, either with or against the breeze. And we absolutely put so much pressure on their striking, on their passing, and we got a lot of turnovers. I think we got a couple of points off their goalie alone, and he put a couple of balls over the sideline as well. So our setup was really impressive as well, in terms of, I think tactically we got it right. We pressed them, we pressed their puck outs. We saw a weakness and we went at it rather than letting them build from the back like some teams might. You know what I mean? Let them come out one line before we pressed them. But I thought we were excellent from that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kevin McDonald, brilliant. Yeah. Like I wasn't expecting him to be hitting frees, even though he's quite good at them. We would have saw him doing it underage and to very good effect. And it's unfortunately we don't have a clip of the goal because it was majestic.
I think it's on PG4. I think it's on. I think they were down yesterday. And for anyone who's listening, if you haven't seen it, just look at it. The things he did yesterday, in fairness to the chap, it was a super team effort. First off, let's say that like every single one of the lads were just super. You know what I mean? They were masters of their area. Like you have to say that. Like, but just picking out Kevin was exceptional on the freeze. struck him really well. He missed one, I think, in the second half over. I think it was just about 21 yards out on the sideline at the stand side of the field. I think he put one wide was all. His goal was something special. I mean, you have to see it. He had his back to the goal. The ball broke out, ball in the square, and just with his back to the goal, flicked it. Another lad might have caught it, might have been turned and swallowed up, but he had the bit of thinking to flick it. Also in the first half, I hope it shows as well. He was coming up for a ball around just actually in front of us across on the terrace, in front of the old press box, and a ball popped up in the air, and rather than catching it and trying to hand pass it on, he got a call, and as he went up in the air, he palmed it forward very deliberately. It wasn't like he missed the catch, very deliberately, and it created a scoring chance. I think it might be for Conor Keogh. I can't remember who it was, but we popped the ball over the bar. Excellent. Kevin is so creative. And I think we were talking about myself and Stevie as well, that we probably kind of are so used to seeing him doing being so consistent. You know what I mean? We're so used to him that it's kind of nearly taken, kind of just taken for granted. But yesterday his creativity was excellent. Like, he hit another crossfield ball for a score as well, when he possibly could have hit his own the first half, but played a better ball into a man in a better position as well. And I just thought, as a creative spark there yesterday, maybe when we were missing Mouse and we needed other lads to chime in and to really leave their mark in the game, I was really impressed by him.
Yeah, all 6 forwards scored before half time, which was great. I think Carlow scored more in the first half than possibly they did in the whole game last week.
Yeah, and we had number, like, from I think 6 through to I think Dean might have been the only. Dean. No, from 6 up we scored. Dermot got a point there, and Jack got a point as well. So great spread of scores. Our scoring threat was excellent. And even at that, I suppose you can call it negative, or right, sometimes look at it as a positive. But I think we hit 15 or 16 wides over the hour. Hit a lot of wides. But the only thing about it is, if you're hitting wides, you're creating chances. And I mean, right, some of them were poor wide, some of them, were ones where you're under pressure or whatever else, but at least you're creating chances. And I think, we didn't cough up, like flipping back. We're talking about the creativity and the punch we had up in the middle third and going forward. But our backs look very solid as well yesterday. I mean, our full back line, the two Dials and Conor Lawler were excellent. Like, Conor had a big tussle in there with, I think it was Niall Mitchell, isn't that number 12, I think?
Yeah.
On the edge of the square, and I think it kind of, Conor loves that sort of a game. You know what I mean? A big man, a big physical threat like him. He likes tangling with him. And in fairness to Paul Dial and Michael Dial, who were so mobile and so ready to snap up the breaks. And I suppose our two, coming further out the field, then with our maybe two of our more experienced players in the half back line, and Jack Kavanagh and Dermot Byrne. And Dermot was just excellent from sweeping that half back line. Anything that did come through the middle third, he swept it up, and he was excellent, really excellent. And Jack then, like I said, slapping over the point, and great score in the first half when we needed it. Popped another on wide, but Jack knows his range in Netwatch Cullen, and he was right to have a go at it. But he was excellent, and you could see the steady hand. You know what I mean? He was real steady back in that half back line, along with Jack McCullough, as we know, was just excellent as well. So I think from a Carlow point of view, it was probably as a complete performance as we've given in a long number of years, really, in terms of things. And I suppose credit to the lads too. I think tactically they got it right. Not that they often get it wrong, but tactically I thought they got it very right. Having John Michael in the edge of the square, I think, was a good move, because I think it drew kind of Tommy Dial. I know Angus Clark would hurl 6, and Tommy Dial would hurl. Sometimes, Tommy Dial hurl centre back as well, like he did last year, and Angus Clark could sometimes move out to the middle of the field. But I think yesterday, having John Michael in on the edge of the square, it meant that they had to kind of keep Tommy Dial back there, keep him pinned back. So I think they got it right, very right tactically as well. So I think fair play to the lads as well. They did an excellent job.
Yep, 100%. So attention now turns to Kerry. So it'll be Sunday week, 27th of Feb, 12:30, Netwatch Cullen Park, and yeah, it's going to be a great game as well. You'd be hoping home advantage to stand to us on that, but we'll probably chat about that, I'd say, closer to the time. But yeah, great performance and well done to the lads. So we now turn our attention to Camogie, and obviously yesterday in the Ashburn Cup final was a win for DCU. Plenty of Carlow representation. Seamus Kelly and Seamus O'Brien involved from the management side. But also in terms of the playing side of things, Katie Gary Murphy of Nave Breed and Catherine Kavanagh of Monaghan Rangers in the goal. So I had a little chat with the two ladies earlier that took a bit of time out of their celebrations to speak to us. So let's hear what they had to say. Now on the left wing back show, we turn our attention to Camogie, and I'm delighted to be joined by Katie Gary Murphy and Catherine Kavanagh, members of a successful Ashburn Cup winning team with DCU over the weekend. First of all, congratulations to both of you, and thanks for taking the time to have a chat with us. I know lots of celebrations are in full swing, and we promise not to take up too much of your time. But you must be buzzing, obviously.
Yeah, no, well, sure, when we started the competition, really, we were like, oh, imagine we got to the Ashburn weekend, or imagine we got to a semi-final, like, so we were complete underdogs for the whole thing, so to come out with a cup at the end of it, like, it's just the most hard work thing, to like get what you worked for is just so rewarding or something, and the girls are all mad for it down there, so might as well go hard at it.
And it sounded like, I'm not going to take the manner of victory away, but it sounded like you were kind of comfortable for the lion's share of the game, but you had a lot of work done beforehand, like.
Yeah, look, the lads did their research. You know, we knew what to expect. I don't think we expected. No, we did expect the performance that we brought. You know, we had a bit of work to make up for losing to UCD the first round. But look, the girls were super. You know, couldn't have asked for a more complete performance. I think than what we got yesterday.
And in the end, I think it was 13 points. So, like, that's quite a turnaround, in fairness. There was a lot of learning, I suppose, exercises that you had to kind of take from that defeat. And you put it to good use on the day when it mattered the most.
Yeah, exactly. Just, you know, we like I said, like, we did our homework. And just to come out with that performance, you know, it means the world to us.
Yeah. So, from your point of view, you're playing in the goal now. I don't really know you as a goalkeeper too much, but how did that adaptation occur?
Yeah, sure. Look, I don't know myself as a goalkeeper just yet. I think I can't really use that excuse anymore, though. Sure, I've been in it here for the last 3.5 months.
Yeah, like 3.5 months.
Yeah, look, I'm a forward by trade, but look, Seamus gave me the opportunity to be on an Ashburn team in the goal. They needed someone to do it, and I said, yeah, you know what, we'll give it a lash. And look, it was a big adjustment. You know, big change, but look, it worked out in the end.
Yeah, so obviously we had a large Carlow contingent, like not just yourselves, but you mentioned Seamus there. Two Seamuses involved, Seamus Kelly, of course, and Seamus O'Brien, two Monaghan Rangers men, combining, I suppose, to put this victory together. So I know definitely with Seamus Kelly, having worked with him before, like, he's coaching a long time. Seamus was coaching even when he was studying in DCU. So, you know, he's got quite a CV and a better book, I suppose.
Yeah, he spoke yesterday to us actually about his, like, he got a scholarship for coaching when he was in college, and like how he was training freshers, and he actually like fell in love with it. So when he got a call about 10 years later to come back in, and train an Ashburn team, he was like, all he was told to do was to try to beat one of the three. UCC, Witty, UL, just try to beat one of them. So when we put three under our belt, look, you can't knock Seamus. Everyone bought into what he brought, and like, look, the man is mad for it. He actually is some girl for the sport, so it was great to have someone so serious about it, and so serious about the girls, because obviously at the end of the day, like, Ashburn's Division 1, but like, it could be seen less than for Fitzgibbon or Sigerson or the likes. So we see someone who takes us completely seriously. He brought such a good team with Roisin Green as well, and the Tommy and Seamus, and then there's Brian and Ambrose. Like, he had such a good setup with him, like a well-worked, well-rounded team.
Mm-hmm. And the standard in general, I think, of the Ashburn seems to have risen in the last couple of years, along with Camogie in general. It is really good now, and it's getting a bit more profile as well, I think.
Yeah, sure. If you're looking at like the CCAO posts and all, like, it's literally Ashburn for the whole weekend, and DCU and everyone are really lapping into, like, well, coming from an intermediate county, like, these girls we're training with, we're playing against are all seniors, and you're training the girls who are with the senior Kilkenny or senior Wexford, and like their standard of training and all would be a lot higher than what you used to do. It's nice to go into like a developing situation where you're not used to, where you're kind of pushing on it that bit more. Mm-hmm. Like, the standard of its class when you're training with something so good as that.
And I suppose from your point of view, you weren't the only two Carlow girls who were in action, I suppose, over the weekend. We had plenty of others as well. Maybe you'll name drop a few of those while we're at it, sure. It'd be rude to leave anyone out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no, sure. You have like Rachel Breen and Kiva Collins up in the IT Sligo. They got to the semi-finals. They were bet during the week. Ciara Kavanagh, Emma Cody, Eve Sinnott, they're all in the IT and Carlo. They got bet after extra time as well, unfortunately, during the week. And then
Hiba Lawler is in Maynooth with they're an Ashburn team. They didn't really get as well as they should, but they're like new enough to the Ashburn team as well. So their team's really pushing on, so they did well as well.
Yeah, so we've a litter of players all over the gaps as you. But yeah, look, while the celebrations will be tasty over the next few days, I take it, are you two involved with the Carlo Camogie set up this year? Or how you
yeah.
Yeah, so that's Saturday or Sunday, I think, against Armagh at home.
Saturday, yeah, at home.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting over the next few days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, you have to enjoy these things. That's the most important thing, like, because they are rare and they are special. So it's not for me probably to say I'm not over the team or anything, but I would certainly say they're almost once in a lifetime. So you kind of have to go and make the most of it and enjoy the celebrations. So look, I suppose they are there to be enjoyed, and I'm not going to delay you too much longer. I do appreciate you taking the time to come on and have a chat with us here at the 11th hour. And Katie Gary Murphy and Catherine Kavanagh, well done again. We're delighted for you. And
Thanks,
enjoy the
Kevin.
celebrations and best luck next weekend. All right.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
thanks,
Cheers
Mel.
for that.
Yeah, well done indeed. Fantastic stuff. I'm just going to bring in Joe before we wrap up the end of the Hurling show. To just say thanks again. It was a very interesting debate there with Stevie. We could have went on for another bit of time with it, I think. Did we kind of south alternatives, whatever? I'm not quite sure, but it will definitely not be the last.
Look, sure,
we'll talk about it.
It's a debate. Like, sure, look, it's ongoing, isn't it? I suppose, like
Yeah.
I said, we all have people. Anyone who's involved with teams have good intentions. You know what I mean? In terms of doing things as well. And there's great people involved in GA, and that's why we love it. You know what I mean?
That's it.
And it's maybe just getting the fit for it. And just on that, just to say, look, we a bereavement there in Ballinkillen there over the weekend. Paddy Farrell, who was part of the 1973 team, big, as you know him from Loughlin, Kevin, and he passed away. And look, our sympathies to the family. Paddy was a big, massive Ballinkillen supporter, played with Ballinkillen. I was actually down there during the summer, and I went down and was giving him a club jacket, as a kind of a measure of thanks for the sponsorship and stuff. He always kept with the club, and he brought down his jersey that he won his championship with nearly 50 years ago, and he said the jersey still fits him, an old cloth jersey. So that was a man. Talk about, we're on about passion and what clubs mean to people and connections and what the GA is about. I think I saw no better example in a long, long time than that man, and his continuation of his support for Ballinkillen, and he's involved with writing the book as well. So our sympathies to Paddy's family at this time, and it's a sad time for them and a big loss to our club as well.
Absolutely, we pass on our condolences. John Nolan, thanks a million.
Thanks,
Pleasure as always.
Take care.
And that concludes the Hurling show in association with Solar Signs. Now we move on to the football show, which is also in association with Solar Signs in Bangladesh. Number one for your signage, garment printing and embroidery, solarsigns.ie, the website, and you get them on Facebook and on where else is it? Instagram as well, of course. And Nigel will look after you. Right, yeah. So where do we start? I suppose we have a good bit to go through, and no better man to go through it with us, and hopefully the internet stacks up okay, as Mr. Gavin Whelan, the under-20 Waterford football manager and broadcaster with WLR as well. Gav, how are we doing?
Not too bad, Kevin. How are things? Good to see you. And hopefully all holds up well here in Waterford and Colligan with the internet. So we'll see how things go on here. But good to see you and keep up the good work as well on the podcast.
Likewise. So I think we'd have just a slight delay. We are seeing you and we are hearing you, but there might be a little slight delay. So don't think I'm kind of ignoring you or whatever. Just the joys of it. National Rollout Plan. I'm looking for it to be rolled out there and roll out very, very quickly, because these are the trials and tribulations of a live stream. And trust me, you're not the first person to encounter such difficulty. So yeah, listen, Gav, first of all, before I go talking about the football side of things, I'd like to talk about Ballygunner, because that's a massive thing for Waterford GA, and it was just such a dramatic day in general with the two club finals. But beyond belief, really, wasn't it?
Unbelievable, Kevin. Really, I'm still kind of thinking, Monday today, that did this actually happen? Like, Ballygunner, what a story. I suppose they've been setting the bar in Waterford the last number of years, 8 in a row, and the big thing was, could they get over the line and win the Holy Grail? And you just couldn't have scripted it, really. Like, I mean, Harry Ruddle, 23 years of age, gets a ball in the last minute and buries it in the net to win an All Ireland. Like, I was chatting to him afterwards, like, and it's just Riot or Rover stuff, fairy tale ending, and I suppose no better way to win a game, really. You could see the agony and the ecstasy was really in evidence. The Ballyhale players just dropped to their knees, and Ballygunner were just leaping around like a crowd of teenagers just left out, and it was just unbelievable. It was a great story, and even going down to the dressing room afterwards, they didn't realise themselves what they had actually achieved. I'd say it's probably only yesterday or today that's actually sunk in, and they were in the primary schools there earlier on, and massive achievement, first Waterford, I suppose, male club to win a senior All Ireland, and in the most dramatic of circumstances. So it was a real privilege to be up there, Kev. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was gone, I was like, it's going to be hard to be talking to these fellas now after a 2-point defeat, and next minute up steps Harry, and it was some goal, and I'd say he won't have to buy a pint in Ballygunner for a long while, I'd say, Kev.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in general, you think of the likes of the Mannies and Ian Kenny and Shane O'Sullivan in particular, and the heartache that they've suffered and gone through, and lots more before that as well, that not specifically from Ballygunner, but just Waterford people. And I think, it's bound to be a massive lift, I suppose.
Definitely, and psychologically, I think that's huge too, Kevin, for a Waterford club to win a game in Croke Park. There's been many, I suppose, somber days coming out of GA headquarters, and after defeat or a nearly story, or what I mean. Like, I think Liam Cahill has alluded to it there. Like this year, even moral victories, we don't want them anymore. And Waterford, it's about performing and getting over the line. And Desi Hutchinson made a great point about, the last time he was in Croke Park or for an All-Ireland final was with Waterford in 2020. There was no crowd there. Limerick gave us a bit of a lesson on the day, and he's walking around the other day celebrating with his brothers and his club and his family winning an All-Ireland medal. So, what a background that is too from, Desi, from his time with Brighton and Waterford FC, now fully establishing himself as an inter-county hurler. And again, the other day when Ballygunner needed that goal, he stepped up to the plate and won 3 from play. Like, it was unbelievable. Ballyhale just couldn't handle him, and they had 2 men on him. So he's a huge asset for Ballygunner. He's a huge asset for Waterford, and as Darragh Sullivan touched on afterwards, hopefully this can be a driving stone now for Waterford to drive forward for the rest of the season as well. But huge to get a victory for a Waterford team to beat Kilkenny, Kevin, especially in the manner of it too. I think Ballyhale, some will say they got out of jail against St. Thomas's, and even earlier in the year, even against St. Ryan's, and against, in fairness to Mount Leinster, put it up to them too in the first round there, the Carlow champion. So I suppose they got their frights earlier on in the year, and they just couldn't. This time it was Ballygunner turned the tables on them. So look, you have to make your look in All Ireland final day too, and Ballygunner, I know it's still hopping, I believe, at the minute there, Kev. So I wasn't, despite their best efforts to try and drag me down. But there's a long week there yet, so we'll see how that pans out.
There is. When we get you out here shortly, you might get a point into you yet to do. But in terms of the football side of things, then, Gav, right? I think you're pretty well placed, right? Because you saw a lot of Carlow last year from doing the GA Go streams, and being involved as the Waterford under 20 football manager. You're very much in the know. So. I suppose from a Waterford point of view, firstly, it's been an interesting start. A draw, I think, with Tipperary in round 1. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. And then in round 2, obviously, the game against London, which was a roller coaster. Delay is gone on us there now, isn't it? I think we're permanently delayed. Guys, are we back?
I think I'm back to there, am I? Yeah, sorry, Kevin. Sorry. I think I vaguely got your points there. Obviously, look, it's round 1 was a great result for Waterford. Getting draw against Tipperary was massive, and probably a game Waterford could have won. They had a chance at the death with the late free, and I suppose, look, ultimately, I suppose going into that game, you'd have probably taken a draw before throwing. So that was a good positive result. Then the London game, round 2, I suppose this hoodoo, that's Ruislip hoodoo, if you want to call it that, I suppose came back to haunt the lads again. They had a bad start, went 4 points down, then re-established themselves and went 6 up, and then London, I suppose, came with a late flurry, and they edged it by a point, so it was bitterly disappointing not to come away from Ruislip with anything, because if you had 2 points on the board heading to Carlow this weekend, it still keeps you, very much alive and in a good place. But, it's a massive game from Waterford's point of view, because, if you can get the 2 points on Saturday night, it puts you back into contention, especially the way the results are going in Division 4. It's hugely competitive, very tight. So, it's not a bad start for Ethan Fitzgerald, but definitely, in the first 2 games, you probably would have been targeting at least maybe 2 points, be it maybe people were probably looking at the London game as a victory, and maybe Tip might have been viewed as being too strong, but I thought Waterford were very competitive that day against Tip, really had a strong second half and really tore into him, which is what Efi Fitzgerald I think is demanding, that this kind of high spirit and high energy level, that's what he wants Waterford to play, and bring this maybe level of aggression into their play as well, and have pride in wearing that Waterford football jersey as well, which is important, I suppose, for teams in the lower tier, Kevin, as you know, and so I suppose that's the situation they're in now. There's no time for resting on the laurels with Division 4 games, because they're coming thick and fast. But they've had a week off now, as they've had Carlow after a pretty difficult start to, I suppose, readdress things, and all roads leading to Netwatch Cullen Park on Saturday night, and looking forward to it, because over the years Waterford and Carlow, usually not much to choose between the sides. I know he came down to Farfeed and he gave us a bit of a lesson last year, so I'm sure Efi will be reminding the lads of that during the week. But huge game for both counties, and definitely a huge game from Waterford's point of view.
You're spot on. I think last year was a freak kind of result, because yes, Carlow played very well, but you're right, there's never a whole lot between them. And even when Carlow were, I suppose, in their pomp going back 4 or 5 years ago, they still struggled to beat Waterford. So that's always the way it's been. I think the team bears very little resemblance to the one you would have saw last year, I would say. It's very much changed. There's lots of new kids on the block, and everyone is saying they need time. And look, we'll be chatting to Niall Crew in a few minutes, but I think it's mad to be saying this, but it's going to be a big ask for Carlow to get a couple of points from this. They do have a couple of lads back, Jamie Clark and Dara Foley, which would be massive players. And I think in general, if you're looking at verdicts, it's a kick of a ball situation, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And, as you say, Kevin, it's tight and tense down Division 4. There's no quarter given or asked. And, I suppose from Carlow's point of view, I know Niall Crew very well. I've chatted to him a few times last year at the Carlow games. And, of course, he had a very good spell down in Waterford too for a few years. And, he brings that, I suppose, high energy and level of professionalism to the setup. And I know Carlow were short a good few for their game against Sligo, but still, I suppose, a defeat like that, it can't be good, I suppose, for maybe squad's mentality or that. So it's going to be hard to pick the lads up, but knowing Niall, the character and the manager he'll be well able to do that. And they'll be viewing this game as Carlow get a win on Saturday night, it puts them back into the it just gets the confidence back up then for your remaining games, and it gets you back on the horse, I suppose, and you want to be getting a victory in your home games as well. Home advantage in Division 4 is crucial. I know how bitterly disappointing that would have been to lose to London in round 1, and it was really a hard pill to swallow, but he'll certainly have to try and pick them up. And from Efi Fitzgerald's point of view, Waterford, I suppose, again, huge turnover of players this year, which has been the issue, I suppose, over the last number of years, and getting guys to commit in that. And I know there's probably maybe Tommy Prendergast retiring as well as a big loss. So probably, he'd have liked to maybe the panel to be a little bit stronger, but there's plenty of talent in that Waterford team too. And he knows if he can get the best out of those guys on Saturday night, and if they perform to their capabilities, they're well capable of getting a result,
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, Gav, we're going to let you go, because I don't want the Ballygunner lads saying some lad with a podcast stop Gav from going down and having a pint. KFC is probably closed actually at the minute, so that's not going to be an obstacle, I would say. Although we did enjoy a nice, I don't know, what do you have in there? A zinger tower or two, I suppose, in the brief spell I had in the broadcast centre, which was very enjoyable, obviously. But listen, good to catch up with you again, and thanks for jumping on for the few minutes. All right.
Yeah, no bother, and sorry again for the lack of the internet here. There's some things around Waterford, Kevin, we just we can't control. So no, look forward to catching up with you there on Saturday night. And look, it's always a great venue. Netwatch Cullen Park Saturday night lights, I suppose, up in Carlow is always a big occasion, and no doubt the Bush Ultras, I'm sure, will be out in force again on Saturday night. I know I met him a few times last year. So, look, I know Waterford will bring up a decent enough crowd too. It's something about a game under lights too. There's a bit of crack about it, a bit of atmosphere. Yeah. And I know we have you in the under-20 league then the following Friday night. You're coming down to WIT. We played you in the Challenge there a couple of weeks ago up in Fennes. So, look, always get on well with the lads. And in fairness, good relationship between the two counties. And look, sure, may the best team win. May football, I suppose, be the real winner, Kevin, on Saturday night. But good to chat to you, and keep up the good work, as the fella says.
Likewise. Thanks a million. We'll chat to you again soon. Gavin Whelan there, Waterford under-20 football manager and broadcaster with WLR, referee down in Waterford as well. He's not idle too often, let me tell you. We're going to chat to Barclay Martin in a couple of minutes' time, but first we're going to hear from the Carlow Senior Football Manager, Niall Crew. Now, just put out a little disclaimer. Going towards the second half of this 9-minute piece, the audio does go a bit skew-ways. Tried my best to resolve it, so just bear with us on that one, please. Niall Crew on the Left Wing Back podcast. Niall, how's things? I don't think we've spoken to you in this sort of an environment before. We did have you on the podcast previously. We were only audio at that stage. But we're going big time now with TV and the whole lot here. So how's things with you, boss?
Yeah, all good, Kev. Thanks very much. Yeah, all good. Delighted to be on.
I suppose, Niall, at the moment, it's probably a difficult enough time for yourself and the lads. Results haven't been hectic, no more so in the last day, I suppose, against Sligo, which wasn't wonderful. We knew we were going to be under a bit of pressure going into that. Having said that, maybe we weren't expecting it to be as bad, were we?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. We didn't perform anyway. I suppose I did feel sorry for all the younger fellas we started. I think we've maybe had 8 to 9 lads that made their league debut for Carlow, and then there was only their second game coming off the London defeat, and then I threw 4 or 5 more in on top of that because we'd no choice. Look, we were missing 9 starters against Sligo that would normally start, and it's very hard then when you're, I suppose, throwing a very inexperienced team out in a National League game. I've no doubt if we had everyone and I only had 1 or 2 of them lads joining in, certainly they would be a lot better than what they were. A lot of them got stage fright last week, which is understandable as well. But they'll certainly learn from it, Kev, going forward. But yeah, we were disappointed the way we played. We were disappointed we didn't work smart enough. I'm not saying we didn't work hard enough, we didn't work smart enough. And I think the occasion got to a lot of the lads staying overnight, and it took an awful lot out of them. They wouldn't be used to it, But look, we are where we are in terms of the players available to us. But Kev, I'll tell you, the lads are training really, really hard. They're very respectful of the setup. The county board, in fairness, are, they're getting things in place for slowly but surely. Jim Bulger has been a massive help going forward. He really wants football to improve. They do know that we've lads coming in that they're just not at that standard physically yet. And it could take 2 to 3 years to get lads up to it. But we do have to kind of hurry it along as much as we can. Like we are Mark Fury, I suppose, and maybe Chris Blake's lads that are under 30, that they're 2 lads you'd like to have in. Everyone else is in. The other lads are the wrong side of 30 and Father Time is caught up in them. And you can't keep asking lads in their 35, 36 years of age to keep coming in, because then you can't develop anyone. Our problem is that we've too many lads at that age group, that have all retired at the same time. But look, they had to go at some stage. So we might suffer this year, but I think long term it could be good for Carlow, could be good for us going forward in terms of getting a lot of experience, league games under their belt. And as I said, they're working very hard and they're very coachable as well. So yeah, we're excited, even though the 2 results, wasn't good. The London game, I'm still hurt over it. In terms of, I just felt a few decisions went against us that you've no control over, and losing Jamie Clark obviously turned the game completely. Every London player, every chance they got, they were catching them by the neck. Every time I pointed that out, I ended up getting a yellow card. So it was very frustrating on the line, I have to admit. And the wheels did fall off then in the second half and in the last 12 or 13 minutes, which is understandable when you have that many new players and you're down to 14 lads. So, we'd 4 new debutants in defence at the time, and I had Dara O'Brien back there who's doing extremely well for us anyway. But look, it was very hard to take, and then the Sligo game we just didn't perform, and that's, at least you can improve on that. And I was able to sit down with the lads and show them how to be smarter in their runs, and even though they're working hard, they need to work a lot smarter. So there was a lot of coaching, sitting down doing one-on-ones with video work, and just, I suppose, just getting into their head really, Kevin, in terms of what's expected as an inter-county footballer. And they're all buying into it, but it's going to take time.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. Well, I suppose, look, I don't think you mind me putting on record that you did give me a look at the Jamie Clark incident from an alternative angle. And you're always quite open about things anyway. You don't mind, you're nothing to hide, you're that type of guy, and that's what I like about you. But I suppose, as I would have said to you prior to seeing the clip, we thought from the far side that it looked like Jamie should have got a red, and even still haven't seen the video. It looked red, but what we didn't see was the fact that it appeared there was a strike from the London side before that, which went unnoticed. Like, and then 2 wrongs don't make it right, but it did seem a little bit harsh that we suffered and maybe they didn't. And then also, like, just losing Dara added insult to injury, Dara Foley, for the Sligo game. Again, I don't really know. Was that was for something that happened after the game? I think, was it?
Yeah, that was something. Dara made a remark to the referee after the game, or not to the referee, to the linesman about the referee, and the linesman then reported that to the referee in the dressing room, who in turn reported that on his report, and Dara ended up getting a 1-match ban then.
Right, okay. So
So
that was
for abusive language. But look, Dara knows himself, you can't do that. But you could certainly understand his frustration. And just before half time as well, there was a little bit of a schmozzle with Jamie Clark and one of our lads. I think was it Conor Crowley maybe. No, it was Jamie Clark. Could have been, it was one of our defenders. I'm not sure which one it was now off the top of my head, but I know not Jamie, Shane Clark was one of them, and there was a free in given just before half time, and the linesman flagged it over and he spoke to the referee. There was 4 or 5 players in it from both sides, and in the video you can clearly see Jamie getting a box right into the stomach, or not Jamie, Shane. And what ended up there, Kev, was that we got 2 yellow cards and there was no London player reprimanded. So, and you know, I said this to them going in at half time, and it was probably, I just felt there was a few little things like that going against us. And look, you've no control over it. And whereas the referee last week when we played Sligo, in fairness to him, he wasn't trying to bring us back into the game at any stage. He just reffed the game, and that's his job. And I felt if we had that referee against London, I felt the result would have been completely different.
So, Niall, I suppose Waterford is definitely a county that you're familiar with. That's the opposition on a Saturday evening. Talk to us about that, I suppose. Yeah, it has to be some sort of an advantage.
Yeah, look, I suppose been down there for 2 years now. It's 10 years ago now, Kev. It was 2013, so I know it's terrible, isn't it? 2013 and 2014, I was with them. Good lads, good honest bunch. And one thing about Waterford is if they know to have any chance during the game, they'll stick with it. I mean, they turned over Sligo 2 years ago to beat Wexford in the qualifiers, only maybe 2 years ago as well, or maybe that was last year. So, yeah, look, they're a match for any Division 4 team. So we know we'd have to play well to beat them. So it's there's no gimme games anymore in Division 4. You know, I don't think there ever was, to be honest with you. I think it's a very level playing field, and if anyone's off on any given day, they're in trouble. And you've seen that with Tipperary. Waterford drew with Tipperary and Thurles. Then you've seen Leitrim beating Tipperary and Thurles. So, yeah, it's going to be a tight game again, you know.
Mm-hmm. And just to confirm then, so we do have a few bodies back. So who are we likely to see in contention that wasn't there, I suppose, the last 2 days?
Well, the last day, I suppose, the Sligo match, you're going to probably you'll see Josh Moore back, you'll see Darren Foley back, you'll see Jamie Clark back. You know, Ross Dunphy might make the bench. So you'll have all of them boys back, which is it's a massive plus for us. So it could be too early for the likes of Owen Root and that going forward, and I'm expecting Sean Gannon back training in a couple of weeks as well. So that's all. Holly Byrne as well is making good headway. So you know that's it's big pluses when you've all them boys coming back together. So I definitely have probably at least 4 changes on the start of 15. So it'll strengthen our panel, and the new players that are in, it'll give them a chance again to pressure off them because there's more experienced players in, you know.
Yeah, we'll try that again. Carlos, senior football manager, Niall Carew there. Again, apologies for the sound quality just going towards the second half of the interview. We mentioned broadband difficulties earlier, and broadband difficulties were plentiful in around these parts as well today. So now we move on to ladies football, and I'm delighted to welcome on Bart Martin. How are you doing, Bart?
Good, Kevin. How are you?
You're flying it now. Listen, congratulations. So LGFA Club Coach of the Year.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. A bit unexpected, to say the least. Didn't know anything at all about it. Didn't know there was anything going on in the background until I got an email from the LGFA to say that, I was picking up some award, but didn't tell us what it was, and I wasn't supposed to say it to anyone. So I heard a few weeks back, but they were going to make some announcement about it, so they wanted us to keep it quiet. So I think it was only on Thursday evening. I think it was Thursday that the actual official announcement was made, and at that stage was the first time I was aware that it was actually the coach award that they were giving me.
That's brilliant, and even in terms of it going in the first place, I wouldn't think you knew a whole lot about it. Like it was probably under the radar as such, was it? Yeah,
it was. It sounds like it was. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, look, it's so well deserved, and I'm delighted for you, because there's not too many matches you'd miss, be it ladies or men's football. You just love the game, so it's great to see you recognised. And you're going to hate me even saying that now, because I know you're a man of great modesty as well. But despite all that, obviously you're chuffed.
Sure. You'd see it I see it as recognition for the club. I think the success of the club over the last few years, winning the Carlow Championships and having the Leinster Championship, when I think we have a profile out there. So probably when O'Loughlin is mentioned, we're not strangers. I suppose at Leinster level, or even at central level. So
yeah.
I'm sure it was a factor.
Yeah. No, look, it's brilliant. So, given the involvement that you've had, you were over the Carlow ladies team. You're with. Are you over O'Loughlin this year? Is that appointment made, or what?
No, I'm not.
I've heard vicious rumours now.
I'm involved with juvenile. In some. Well, if any of the groups need a hand, you'll always be there. I always hate to think that actually, an age group wouldn't have someone, if there was someone not available to do a second session or whatever during the week. So I generally try and make myself available if it's a case of getting a bag of balls and cones and keeping a group of under 14s or 16s in the pitch, and they should be there. So but I'm back involved at underage in Carlow. Well, I've gone in as for my sins after, as you know, like was Carlow, a very competitive interview process for the development officer. I've taken on that for my sins. And I've also got involved there with the under 14 now. We're just at the final stages of finalising the panel for that. That's Leinster Championships kicking off next Saturday. The first 3 rounds of it are run on a blitz basis or whatever. So that's keeping me busy.
Yeah, you're not going to be idle. I suppose on the playing fields at adult level, probably a disappointing loss over the weekend. And I suppose I should mention your daughter Avian, of course, is vice captain at the side. Ruth Birmingham, I think, is actually captain. That's something you're obviously very proud of too. But I didn't hear much from the game on that day. They kind of lost out or whatever. So maybe
I
pass it on.
It was a tough day at the office for them. There was a very difficult wind blowing right down the pitch, and they started very well actually. At the first water break, there was they just conceded a penalty just before the water break, and the game got away from them in the second quarter, and it was a bit of a knuckles struggle after that. But those of us that are around ladies football, know that score lines don't always reflect the actual work that you can get a big score difference in a game, and it can be actually more competitive than the actual score line suggests. So I mean, the girls battled all the way. I mean, obviously they're short a few that just kind of come in for the year, but also Clean is a big loss there in the forwards. She's after picking up a cruise sheet and an injury, so that's a tough one for her to take. So I want to wish her well with that recovery.
Absolutely, she's been on the show a couple of times as well, and just a phenomenal player really. And we certainly can't afford to be without her. So yeah, definitely the very best luck in the recovery. It's just a dreaded injury, and nightmare stuff. But she has the determination and the will, and she'll be back. She'll be back strong.
Yeah.
The head is in the right place on that front. But yeah, so like as you've kind of said there, scorelines particularly. I know it's kind of cliche, but I think in ladies football, they generally don't really reflect how the game has gone as such, because it can to and fro. Like I remember county finals between Bennecarry and Ireland and O'Loughlin, where one side was 10 points up, and then it could go 6 or 7 points the other way, and this could all be in the space of 15 minutes. So like they can be mad encounters. They do ebb and flow. Like in fairness.
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, and I think that's the case. I suppose from a Division 1 point of view, and maybe going to Division 2 now as well, and it's starting to get better even at club level. The systems are kind of filtering in. So even take Bennecarry and Ireland, for example, in last year's county final against O'Loughlin, and how structured they were in defence. Like O'Loughlin found them very hard to break down. So I think we are, I didn't want to be doing a disservice to ladies football by saying that that's the way the games are, they ebb and flow, but traditionally that's how they did kind of unfold. But now I think we are seeing it change slightly with the setup. And is that because of better coaching? Is it kind of something that people like because we like games that ebb and flow? Is it taking the excitement out of it? But all these things are considerations. So how do you see it?
Yeah, I don't think it's a whole lot different to the men's game. I mean, the games evolve and the ways of playing have evolved over time, and so again the fitness levels and the conditioning levels obviously have improved. And as you say, there's much more, no different to the men. There's much more awareness of actually, obviously, defensive setups and maintaining possession and all of that type of stuff. So, like when you get that, and obviously, I mean, it's just a fact of life that if in girls football, you're not going to have too many girls who are going to be able to kick a ball over the bar from 50 meters or 45 meters out, and that's the laws of science. So it makes sense that actually if that the bulk of the score is going to happen in that around that D area. So if you defend that strongly, it's difficult to get scores, and you see that in some of the games of the weekend there was a few low scoring games as well. So I think the ladies' game is mirroring what's actually happened in the men's game. So
yeah, but like everything, Bart, and you're a big basketball man as well. The old counter to the blanket defense was getting people, as you said, could kick outside the 45, and that's not really a major thing in the ladies' game. But that's where the quick movement and quick hands and basketball comes into play, and I think that's particularly from an O'Loughlin point of view, it does stand to the girls. I feel those are the workarounds, and I suppose that's the challenge as a coach as well, to get that across the players and be disciplined and think about how you're going to do it, rather than just kind of having a knee-jerk reaction and next thing you're wasting ball. I think that there is an improvement in that as well.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. Sure, as you say, to break down these defenses, you have to have proper movement inside. Things have to be done at pace. All of that. And as you say, the coaching, obviously the coaching, again, no different to the men's. There's the coaching has improved over the years. There's a lot of video analysis done, like even at club level, in relation to actually just getting the message across to players as to positioning and all of that. So that's all that's all playing in, I think, to what we're seeing and the huge improvement and development in the game.
There's big talk again in the last few weeks, Bart, about an amalgamation of the associations, really. I suppose that, ladies football and camogie will come under the GA umbrella and it all, just go together, lock, stock and barrel. And that's been mooted before. Where do you see that? Do you think that would be a benefit?
Yeah, I haven't given it much deep thought, but what I would say is, not to. I don't think we should, jump into a decision. I think there needs to be clarity around, how the three organisations, they are three distinct organisations, up to now, and you just shouldn't assume that you can, make a decision in a meeting room somewhere in a conference hall and that you implement it tomorrow. I think there needs to be a lot of planning and thinking put into it, and see exactly, because I think it'll take a number of stages for time. What you don't want to do is make a decision and find in 2 or 3 or 5 years down the line that actually it's not working. I mean, I would be absolutely in favour of it. There's no question, and a lot of clubs are almost operating as one club now, and our own club, O'Loughlin, are a very good example of that. I mean, the ladies' club and the men's club are absolute hand in glove. There's no second-class citizens when it comes to the as regarding availability of the pitch and all that. That's all planned out. Everyone has equal treatment, equal billing, which is great to see. It may not be the case in all clubs, so but I think more and more of that will happen over time. But the big decision to actually formally amalgamate and structures and all of that, to make sure that all of the development that's going on at the moment in across ladies football, camogie or whatever, and in the men's game, that actually, but there's so much commonality across the 3 associations that and obviously there's a huge crossover with the playing facilities. So on the face of it, it is the right thing to do, but I just think it needs to be planned properly, and not to jump into it and find we run into problems that could be avoided if it was actually properly planned.
Yeah, I think given distribution of finances is probably a big thing as well, and where that goes, and to find a workable way. And yeah, there is a good bit in it now. It's not an overnight thing. You're 100% correct. And I think the other side of it is the single biggest reason I'd like to see it happening, and there is a lot of them, but like those god awful fixture clashes when you mentioned dual players, and we've seen too many examples over the last 5 or 6 years for it to be going on any longer. And it's really tough to ask someone to, like, playing 2 matches in the one day. Fair enough, that's a tall order, but in some cases, even from a timing point of view, it meant that a choice had to be made, which I'm not quite sure does that happen as much if they're all in the one association.
Yeah, and you see, you'll always get the high profile situations of actually where there's clashes, but there's a huge amount of very good interaction between camogie and ladies football, all over the country in the different counties in a lot of the club matches. And yes, there has been, and it shouldn't happen. There's no way that that where they know there's dual players, that actually they fix a county match or a county final in camogie, and at the same day a football final. I mean that but like I would say that they're actually in, but they're high profile situations and they get a lot of media attention. But the majority of matches, I would say, the camogie and the Football Association have it worked out. And it's not perfect in that the reality is, if you're a dual player, you're going to you're playing extra matches. So it's inevitable that you're not going to be, you can't be given, a minimum of 3 or 4 days between matches. There's a lot of fixtures to be accommodated and all of that. But I mean, there's absolutely no way that matches should be fixed where they know there's a dual player. If players are in a position to play both codes, they should not be expected to go and turn out, or maybe have to jump in a car and travel 25 miles to immediately after a camogie match and go and play a football match, or the other way around. If the 2 organisations or the particular county that's happening in can't actually get together and sort that out, well, we've no chance with the Russians and the Ukraine then,
Brilliant. So just in terms of fixtures this weekend, I should have mentioned this on the hurling show previously as well when we were on the topic of camogie, but Carlow camogie team are out against Armagh on Saturday, but the Carlow ladies footballers are in action against London. Is that Saturday or Sunday?
That's on Sunday in Dr. Cullen Park. Yeah.
Oh, Dr. Cullen as well. Lovely.
I think it's in Dr. Cullen, yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know what, right? Hang on there 2 seconds. I know we're live, but I'll go down through the Twitter machine, because on the Carlow ladies page there was a little note somewhere. in regards to the weekend's game, and they gave a bit of a report on yesterday as well. So yeah, Netwatch Cullen Park on Sunday. I don't have an exact time there at the minute, but I'm delighted to see that the girls are actually in Netwatch Cullen Park for a start. And yeah, that is progress, and that's good to see, and they deserve it.
Yeah, and like we like I don't like when we actually feel that that's actually progress. We shouldn't be in 2022 and be applauding ourselves for that the girls get an opportunity to actually go and play a county match in Dr. Cullen Park. Like if the facilities are available, why aren't they used? Why wouldn't they be used? Like as we know, all families, there's GA and LGFA and Camogie all crisscrossing over. So I mean, why would one a guy have not think twice about going to be lining out in Dr. Cullen Park, and a sister of his to be celebrating the fact that they're allowed to actually play a match there. We should never be like that. If facilities are available, they should be used for, and teams should be accommodated. But county teams should be accommodated. Like, it's an honour to actually play for your county. The girls are given as much commitment as the fellas, and I say it's one big. At the end of the day, it's one big GA family that's supporting across all the organisations.
It is indeed. Listen, Bart, we'll leave it there. Congratulations again on your award, well deserved, and thanks for coming on the football show with us. All right.
Thanks, Kevin. Cheers.
Good stuff. There you go, Bart Kilmartin. And that concludes the football show, which, of course, was in association with Solar Signs and Binostown, number one for your signage, garment printing, and embroidery. SolarSigns.ie, the website. And you can check them out on Facebook and on Instagram as well. You can also get us. Obviously, we're live on Facebook and we're live on Twitter and on YouTube. But you can get us on Instagram as well at the Left Wing Back, or email us leftwingbackpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again to those who bought us a coffee last week. That link will be floating around over the next couple of days. We do appreciate that. And as you said, it's not compulsory, but it's nice to see that people are seeing the value in the efforts that we're making. And that's great. Thanks a million. Really appreciate it. That's where we leave it. And we will back, next Monday. We'll be back again at 9 o'clock. Actually, just before I go, I should wish a happy 30th birthday to Barry the Bowser Dial, who's been a guest on this podcast a serious amount of times. Actually, only once, funnily enough. But it seemed like a serious amount of times. Maybe it was serious at the time. But he's, I think there's a big bash maybe in the next week or so. We won't mention locations or anything like that or details, but the day itself fell a couple of days ago. So I want to wish him a happy birthday. And Clayton McDonald as well, good friend of mine, also celebrating a 30th very soon. And another good night in store there, no doubt. And in general, happy Valentine's Day. That's where we leave it. And we'll chat to you again next week at 9. Take care.